Good morning and welcome to the New Dawn podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Lucht. So I was thinking about what it is that has made the biggest difference in my life. What has being able to navigate and learn and explore my emotional world, what impact has that had? What has being able to be connected to my intuition, my inner guidance, my ability to have great boundaries, what has that enabled me to do? And one of the biggest, most profound experiences that I've, as a result of all of that, been able to do is I'm able in my relationship with Ben to describe and articulate in a way that he can understand, and that's the significant bit. Describe and relate how I'm feeling. And you and I were talking about this the other day. We were talking about what makes the biggest difference. And that is, if you imagine that even though you're in a relationship with somebody who you love and adore, and they love and adore you, you're still fundamentally speaking a different language, even if you've got the most incredible connection and wavelength and all that kind of stuff, which Ben and I absolutely do. He's still not me and I'm not him. He cannot predict what I'm going to say or think or do. He cannot assume to know what I'm experiencing on the inside. He cannot guess. I cannot project to him through mind reading what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. And one of the biggest problems that he and I have seen in the work that we do together with couples is that people want mind readers. We expect, especially women on the whole, we want men to mind read. We want them to be able to mind read as a sign that they know us, that they love us, that they're listening, that they're watching, that they care, and as a sign that they are paying attention, that they're giving us that attention. And it's a really distorted thing to do, because that's not how you get seen, heard, and understood and validated in your relationship. It's a massive trap, and it causes way more problems, way more problems if you've ever tried doing that, because it's not by any coincidence that we see men and women with these memes online saying, "What's wrong with you?" And the woman says, "Well, you know, or you should know," or some derivative of that, which implies, if you were paying attention, you'd know. If you loved me, you'd know. And it's not like that at all. Where we get the love and attention is by being present with each other, by showing up fully with intention and care for each other, but above all, curiosity. I am always asking Ben if what I'm experiencing or sensing or feeling from him is true, because a lot of the time I'll make it up. I don't know I'm making it up at the time, but I'll interpret his behaviors to mean a certain thing on a certain day through my lens, through my filter, how I am showing up in my world, and then I interpret his behaviors to me through that lens, which, depending on the time of the month, how tired I am, how busy I am, stressed, emotional, non-emotional, I will either potentially see that clearly or not. But often, the most important thing, if not always, is to clarify, stay curious. So I say to him, "Listen, this is how I'm viewing you. This is the experience that I'm sensing. Is this right?" And he'll either go, "Yep, that's spot on," or, "No, that's absolutely not what I was thinking or feeling. God, isn't it great that you asked? Because now I get to clarify because often we get wrong the bits that potentially could cause a drama or chaos between us, right? And so by clarifying before getting into that drama or that chaos is really helpful. Now, the caveat to that is you need to be having conversations with somebody who is open and honest and not gaslighting or stonewalling or keeping that information to themselves to make you pay or give payback or all of those kind of things. This kind of approach doesn't work. In fact, healthy communication with those kind of behaviors are challenging at best and completely dysfunctional at worst, and are very familiar for very unhealthy relationships, such as narcissists and toxicity and abuse and all that kind of stuff. Those are all elements that are normally found in those kind of relationships also. Not exclusively, though, interestingly, but also. So, on the whole, not always, but on the whole, we have a society that's made up of men who haven't been taught how to feel their feelings and women who have a lot of feelings, and either they have to push them down just to get on with it, or like me, the inner world is wild and or has been wild and overwhelming, and we're sensitive beings feeling everybody's feelings and our own and all of the things all of the time. And the journey that I've been on, that I'm still on and probably will always be on, is that the learning to become clear and familiar with myself so that I can articulate not only for myself but for Ben what's going on. And it's the clarity that I bring through the articulation of myself into our relationship which makes a massive, massive, massive difference. And I've been able to do that through the tools that I've cultivated and learned that I'm going to be teaching in Roots. These are all the fundamental core ones. Primarily, two. The first is how to identify and meet my own needs, which is key when it comes to relationships, because we often get into relationships wanting and definitely needing the other person to fulfill our needs. And these needs come from our childhood when we haven't had those needs met, right? And so it's like you're carrying a wound that hasn't been able to come into full circle and mature because it hasn't had its chance to be explored and met and understood. So needs are really, really fundamental, like the need for validation. Let's say I'm going to validate my feelings and emotions. I need my parents to validate my feelings and emotions, to give them truth so that I can create a mature relationship with them. But if I don't, then my emotions stay reactive. They stay on edge. I take everything personally. I take everything as some sort of criticism. I feel very wounded easily. These are things that happen a lot, and they have been a core part of my own experience for a really, really, really long time. They're not like that now, but they have been. And so I see the impact that has in relationships about meeting needs. So I've had to learn to reparent myself, which essentially means identifying, honoring, and then meeting my own inner needs in order to be healthy in my relationship with Ben. And even in our first few, maybe I'd say first 6 months, even now sometimes we're close to 3 years, there are still moments where both of us struggle to ask for what we need, although we know that not asking also creates problems. And now we rumble and we say, oh look, I'm feeling really uncomfortable asking for this need, can you help me? And normally it's so funny. Normally the needs are so small, but any sort of need feels extremely big when they've never been met. So it's always funny to go for the other person to hear that and to say, yeah, of course I can do that. That's no problem. Had they not asked, though, it feels like a distancing, you know, and the fact he did ask or I've asked actually enables us to come closer. So it feels risky at the time, but with practice and with being with the right person, that's key. You learn to open up. You learn that the other person genuinely does care about you. And then the other thing is the emotional world. What do I do with my emotions? How do I navigate a trigger? How do I refrain myself from projecting negativity in my relationship? How do I make sure that I'm looking after my emotional world? These are the two things: being able to articulate my needs and understand them and navigate my own emotional world has created a sense of strength and clarity within me that I'm able to articulate to Ben. And honestly, it is the biggest, most life-changing thing that has happened in my relationships, and I'm now able to do that with my son too. So, and actually I've probably been doing it a little bit longer with him, from the very early days, because it's just been me and him. We've had to be in times and situations together where either he's highly emotional or I'm feeling emotional, especially through court proceedings and divorces and all sorts of emotional clearing, that kind of stuff. When we're both having big emotions, you know, how do we end up still living lovingly together, and me not passing down all of my issues onto him and him taking them on, because there's not a lot of opportunity for discharging that level of intensity if it's just me and him, right? And so I've learned very early on to be able to describe and say to him, listen, I'm not feeling okay today. I know if we go for a walk, I'm going to feel better. I know you don't really want to do that, but if we do it, then I'll do something for you later. And we've just practiced that kind of dialogue for a really long time. And like, another example is he gets very tired at bedtime. Sometimes he goes past feeling tired and misses his cue and starts to get really fearful. So if he's overtired, he gets really panicky and fearful. And so now he says to me, listen, I'm overtired, feeling panicky and fearful. Will you come and cuddle me before I go to sleep? And I go, sure. And it's just, he's now starting to be able to articulate his inner world and describe his inner need. So it makes the whole thing a lot smoother and a lot calmer. Does that happen all the time? No, of course not. Emotions are still emotions. But if I think about Ben, and I'll say to him, listen, I'm not feeling okay right now. I've got a lot of an emotional world going on. There's a lot of stuff happening. I'm tired. I am going to take myself off to my room for a while. I'm going to do some journaling. I'm going to just chill out with some candles, do some yoga, and then I'll come back to this conversation when I feel better. And he's also on board with that, obviously, because he doesn't feel like he has to be responsible for my feelings. He doesn't, that's another thing that he's felt before, just generally responsible for other people's feelings and emotions. And when I take responsibility for mine, it's like a massive weight gets lifted off both of us, and we can work as a team rather than it being you have to fulfill my need because I can't do it for myself. So I'm sharing that with you today because this is what the future of relationships. I do believe with all of my heart that we are in the next 20 years specifically, but we are focusing on relationships because that's where everything starts. our community start in our one-to-one relationships, our families start in our one-to-one relationships, the healing of generational patterns start in our one-to-one relationships. They all start here. And so the quality of the relationship that you have, not only with yourself but with your immediate partner, is going to absolutely fundamentally affect your community, the people around you, and the generational patterns that you pass down or not. So we start here, and this is the future of relationships, is the ability to be able to articulate with clarity what's going on, taking responsibility for our emotions, understanding our emotions, and meeting our own needs as a fundamental basis for the ability for us to expand as human beings into our fullness and our authenticity. Food for thought. If you're curious and you want to know more, if you're ready to start your journey and you want to know more, if you're even already on your journey and you have been for a while, but you know there are pockets of things that you're missing and you want to know more, check out Roots. It's on my website, www.dawnlish.com/roots. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. And in the meantime, please keep believing in yourself. Know that this is possible, and there is a bucket of hope for change out there. And there is so much cosmic support for us right now that it's really like never before. And I'm here for you. With all of my love, have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you soon.